All right. Hi, guys. So you've gotten a little bit of an introduction into learning styles, and we're going to go ahead and dig a little bit deeper about what they are and the value of understanding what your learning style is, as well as putting it to use for yourself. So let's see. So we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but your learning style is using various approaches of taking in, organizing that information, and then processing it. So essentially, it's using your senses to learn. And I really like this cartoon down here because it really shows the variances of different people and how they take in information and how they process that. So the little girl is really a step-by-step type of person. She needs things very organized. She needs to understand what it is and the order in which she's going to be doing them. So she has, the instructions right there. She's reading them. You can see she has her tools laid out. She has the little pieces out. And then you have the little boy there who has imagined what this is going to look like at the end, and he's just starting to go at it. So you can see the instructions are still in the box. It's not something that he's necessarily worried about. And he's just moving forward to jump right in and put that airplane together. So what I like to think about is going to IKEA. So if you've ever been to IKEA and bought a piece of furniture from IKEA, you get that piece of furniture home and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do here? And so some people, like myself, I am the little girl. I want to lay everything out. I want to see everything. I want to make sure that I have all the pieces put together. And other people just jump right in and start putting things together. And they have that ability to just really start and figure it out on their own, and maybe looking at the instructions here and there. So think about that adventure to IKEA that you've had and that piece of furniture, and maybe you were very frustrated by the process of putting that together, or maybe it went very smoothly for you and you enjoyed it. Maybe that frustration for one person is actually a challenge for another, and trying to figure out what that might be. So one thing I want you to do is take your hands and just fold them. How do I do this here? Maybe go backwards. There we go. So just fold them and see which thumb lands on top. So for me, it's my left thumb is on top, and that's what's comfortable. That was automatically what I did. So see what that was for you, which thumb landed on top, and then switch them. So I'm going to go ahead and put my right thumb on top, which feels very strange, very unnatural. It's not comfortable for me. It's not my natural tendency to put that right thumb on top. So it's the same thing with learning styles. Your learning style is your preference for the way in which you learn. It does not mean that you cannot, or that you're incapable of learning through different means. It just means you're going to be more comfortable and take in information a little bit easier when you're utilizing your learning style. So for me, when that left thumb is on top, it doesn't mean I can't be in an environment with my right hand on top. I can, but it's just going to be a little bit different. So think about that with a teacher whose teaching style does not correspond to your learning style. It is your responsibility to be flexible and to find ways in which that you can learn from that instructor and the way in which they are presenting information. Okay. All right. So some benefits that you will get from knowing your learning style. One, just that preferred way of learning, that okay, this is the way in which I can take in information and get the most from it. You're going to maximize your understanding, which is then going to maximize your potential, right? So if you have a better understanding of the subject matter, you're going to be able to do better in the class. It's going to increase your effectiveness not only at school, but also in the work world. So, if you're in your job and you're a very hands-on learner, at work, you want to make sure that as you're learning something new, that you're doing it, that you're not just listening to how to do it, but that you're able to practice before you're expected to perform that duty. It's going to enhance your self-esteem. So by knowing your learning style And then utilizing that learning style when you do well, whether it's at school or in the world of work, it's going to just make you feel better, right? Because you're succeeding. So of course your self-esteem is going to go up. And along with that, your frustration is going to go down. And so when you continually to do well, of course, you're not going to be as frustrated, or you're not reading something or studying something over and over again and still not getting the concept. And knowing your learning style is going to enable you to focus in on your strengths. And so instead of saying, I can't do this, I can't do it, I don't know what I'm doing, when you're utilizing your learning style, you're focusing in on your strengths. And I do want to point out that there's no best way to learn. It's the best way for you. It's not, this is better than, this particular way. A lot of students use flashcards. Well, maybe flashcards don't work for you. Then don't use them, okay? Don't continue to do something that doesn't work. And that's really what you're going to gain through this class, is different strategies to help you to succeed and figuring out what system works best for you. All right, so you've done the profile and you have looked that there are now 3 types of learners. So there's the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. And then of course there's the mixed learner. And so the mixed learner, you guys really have such a great opportunity because you're scoring high in 2, maybe even 3 areas. And so you can utilize all kinds of different types of learning techniques to help you to learn. Or when you're in that classroom with an instructor who is teaching in a different way, you can adjust a little bit easier. So we're going to go through and look at the different preferences for each of these learners and how they can take in information. So a visual learner is somebody who's going to process information that they can see. So using a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a handout, something there, the book, okay, utilizing the book and the graphs that are in the book, that type of thing. Any type of picture or timeline is going to help the student to remember the information and to break it down a little bit easier. So the visual learner is going to have an easier time memorizing or remember information that they have seen, okay? And so I just mentioned flashcards. And a visual learner can utilize flashcards, and that is really going to be helpful for them. I recommend that students get those flashcards on a ring, and so that you can easily be looking through those flashcards as you're in line somewhere, even, while you're stopped at a stoplight, while you're walking across campus, without worrying about the flashcards, falling into a puddle or, getting all mixed up or whatever it might be. You can easily put them on those rings, and they sell them in the bookstore here so that you can keep them all together fairly easily. So consider looking for that. Visual learners do really well with highlighting and using different color pens while they're taking notes. And so highlighting is something we'll talk a little bit more when we get to reading, but you don't want to highlight an entire paragraph. Like, that's not going to do anything for you. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing highlighting to the best of how it should be used, and, highlighting a word here or there, not the entire paragraph. And you'll notice visual learners, because a lot of times they have a little pouch with all their different pens on it, or they have all the different pens laid out on their desk, and they're using different colors to indicate different things, or they have a planner where they use different colors and things like that. So that helps them to see things that are important in a different way. All right, so auditory learners are, they're going to do great in lecture-based classes because they're able to listen and to absorb and to take in that information very easily just by sitting there and listening. A lot of times auditory learners, they don't have to necessarily take notes. They can remember that information. I still encourage people to take notes. I think having information, even if it's just keywords, will help you down the line. If you don't have a test for 6 weeks, trying to remember what was said 6 weeks ago is not that easy. So, but yeah, auditory learners do great in lecture-based classes. One tip is to read aloud. And so as you're reading, to read aloud so that you can hear yourself and be processing that information as you're reading. Having background music playing or background noise can be helpful. What you don't want to happen is the TV is going and then it distracts you and you start watching the TV instead of, doing your work. So you want to, really gauge that. But maybe being in a coffee shop with a lot of chatter or the noise of the machines might be an ideal place for you to get some work done. As you're reading information or studying or looking over notes, really verbalizing information is important. And so to take that information and put it into your own words is going to help you to remember that information. And this is true for all learning styles, but especially for auditory learners, when you can teach someone else and you are listening to yourself teach that person, that is going to be really helpful. So I remember one semester I had a student he was a reentry student, and his father had only gone up to, I think, 6th grade or something. And so he would go home and teach his dad, and he called his dad Pops. And he shared in class, I go home and I teach my Pops what I learned in class, and how it just made such a difference in his own learning because he could, explain information clearly, and he knew that he then understood that information. Okay. I am not an auditory learner. I am very much a visual learner. And one time my husband and I were going to a party in Oakland, and we got lost. It was in November. I remember this. And it was raining, and we could not find where this place was. And so we stopped at a gas station, and I went to the person working at the gas station it wasn't a store. It was like going up to a man in like a cage, he was locked in there. And so I asked him, how to get to this place. And he told me, and I got back in the car, and my husband Joel said, well, where are we going? I said, I have no idea, because it was, just oral directions and I couldn't follow what he was saying. So, auditory, I really have to write things down. That's who I am. And it's going to help me to remember. Still to this day, I keep very long to-do lists of what I need to get accomplished. All right, kinesthetic learners, you guys learn by doing. And kinesthetic learners have been told their entire life, stop moving, don't move, stop bouncing your leg up and down, stop doodling. And unfortunately for you, that's the way that you learn, is by moving. You have to be doing something. And so when you're in that lecture-based class, sitting next to that auditory learner, you might be bouncing your leg up and down, or clicking your pen or drawing some type of elaborate picture. And people think you're not listening, but that's how you do listen. That is how you take in information, is by moving around. Okay. And so a lot of kinesthetic learners have difficulty just sitting in class. And so you really have to look at how you're choosing your classes. Are they 3-hour lectures where that's all the instructor is doing? And what time of day is it at? Is it early in the morning where you're still half asleep, or late at night, 7 to 10, where, you've been going all day and now you're trying to sit in this class, listen. And so you really want to take into consideration, when you're taking these classes and how are they set up. Kinesthetic learners really typically like to do experiments and group activities, move around, talk with other people to process and to help them to retain the information that they are learning. They want to be active, and it's really, really important that you take breaks while studying. That's important for all groups, but it's especially important for kinesthetic learners. And so, give yourself the okay to study for, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes, and then get up and move around. Go do something and come back. The hard part is coming back. So you need to make sure that you take a break, go eat an apple, go for a little walk, go talk with somebody, but come back. So maybe even setting a little timer for yourself to come back into that study session. And then a lot of kinesthetic learners need, again, as you're studying or sitting in class, you need to be doing something. So eating, having, a bottle of water with you, chewing gum, doodling, all those types of things may help you. These days in the classroom, they have fidgets. That's what teachers give their students is here's a fidget. And so having something that you can have in your hand to be playing around with is going to be helpful. And there's all kinds of things on the market, these days that you can have. I used to say have silly putty, just have something that you're kind of squeezing in your hand that you're doing something as you're learning. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this off, and we're going to look at study strategies. If I can pause this. Oh, it's hidden down here. Escape. There we go.